Mr. Chair, it's 4 o'clock. You guys have 3 items tonight. Come on.
Okay, everybody's here. I'll call the regular Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission to order for Wednesday, July 12th. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Delves?
Here.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Here.
Commissioner Locke? Here. And Chair LePage.
Here. Okay, welcome, everybody. Let's see what we got going here. All right, so the first item on the agenda tonight are the public appearances. Members of the public may speak to the Planning Commission on any matters of municipal concern. These items are not on our agenda tonight, and they won't have any discussion tonight, but they may be agendized at a future date. So is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to the Planning Commission at this time on items which are not on our agenda? Anybody online? Anybody got the Zoom up?
There's a hand.
Is there the hand up?
Yep.
Okay. Whoever has their hand up, you can unmute yourself. Speak to the Planning Commission about any item which is not on our agenda tonight.
Hello, Chair LePage, Michael McWalters. How are you?
Good. You have the floor, Michael.
Thank you. Last night at the City Council meeting, City Administrator Rarick announced that on August the 23rd, there's going to be a special Planning Commission meeting to present the draft wireless ordinance.
Correct.
At the March 29 wireless workshop, former Mayor Ken White said, and I'm quoting, "Let's make this the best ordinance in the country," unquote. For this wireless ordinance to be the best in the country for me, it must include the following Supreme Court and Ninth Circuit Court decisions: the 2005 Supreme Court decision in Ranchos Palos Verdes versus Abrams, which reaffirmed our authority and our control over wireless antenna placement; 2009 Ninth Circuit decision in Sprint versus Palos Verdes, where the Ninth Circuit said the city of Palos Verdes can deny to the telcos access to the public right of way on aesthetic grounds; the 2010 Ninth Circuit decision in mobile PCS versus San Francisco, which defines significant gap in telecommunications service and the least intrusive means of filling that gap, which gives us the authority to require wireless companies provide us with hard evidence, the 4 Campanelli test called probative evidence, proving they have a significant gap in their service. We must also include in the whereas section in our wireless ordinance the 96 Telecom Act General Authority section, which gives cities the right to decide the placement of wireless antennas and the placement of wireless cell towers in our neighborhoods. Therefore, no wireless antennas and no wireless antenna cell towers are to be allowed in the R1. These court decisions must be included in our wireless ordinance because, as I've recently learned, up to 30% of our neighbors, 966 of our Carmel-by-the-Sea neighbors, suffer from electromagnetic sensitivity, and we have to use everything we can to protect our health and their health, because as crazy as it sounds, we can't cite radiation sickness as a reason to deny the 5G antennas. These court decisions make our wireless ordinance bulletproof. Radiation symptoms include, and it's a long list, I'll just go through it quickly: cognitive impairment, immunosuppression, headaches, anxiety, depression, and I'll send you a longer list. In an historic decision on August 13, 21, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit ruled in favor of Environmental Health Trust and against the FCC, saying the Federal Communications Commission failed to respond to record evidence that exposure to radio frequency radiation at levels below the FCC's current limit cause negative health effects. We can't rely on the FCC or the wireless companies to protect us from radiation sickness. We must protect ourselves by using these court decisions in our wireless ordinance. Lastly, the 96 Telecom Act
Michael, can you
does not
summarize your 3
mandate us
minutes? Or
Yeah, here's my conclusion, Chair LePage, and I appreciate your indulgence. The 96 Telecom Act does not mandate us to provide wireless broadband, also known as connecting to the internet. Therefore, no 5G in the R1. We're installing fiber optic instead. It's a better service than 5G, and it doesn't have any radiation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to address the Planning Commission at this time regarding matters which are not on our agenda tonight? I don't see anybody online raising their hand. Okay, we will move on to, are there any announcements from the staff or any commissioners? Okay, thank you. Next item is a consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. I
Okay.
do have an announcement. I just want to let everyone know that tonight at 6 o'clock up at the community room at Vista Lobos, there is a meeting for the first sort of like community workshop on the update to the urban forest management plan. So that's taking place up there, being hosted by the Public Works' partners in that, which is Davy Resources. So it's going to be similar to the first workshop we did with the Design Traditions project, where they're going to be up there talking about what the community would want to see come out of an urban forest management plan update. So that's taking place tonight at 6 p.m. up at the Vista Lobos community room, which we will likely be done with this meeting by then. So anyone that's in this room tonight or watching via Zoom can also attend that, but hopefully we'll have a good turnout tonight from our community.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and do not require discussion, but members from the Commission of the Public may ask that those items be considered separately. We only have one item on the consent agenda tonight. This is a monthly activity. It's a report from the Planning Department. So is there any of the commissioners have any questions or want anything pulled? Any of the public have any questions or want anything pulled? Okay, in that case, I will make a motion that we accept the item number 1, the monthly activity report.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ellen,
Yes.
Commissioner Delves,
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
and Chair LePage.
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, I don't see any orders of business tonight, so we move on to the public hearings. Before we start the public hearings, typically I allow 3 minutes for comments from the public. The applicant has 5 minutes to make their presentation, and if need be, I will grant additional time for rebuttal. So the first item on the public hearings tonight is an advisory item. This is for consideration of resolution it's administration determination for consideration of resolution for the permits for the walking tours, and it's for the wine tasting shops. And we'll just go right to staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Staff is bringing back administrative determination that was presented to you at the last Planning Commission hearing on June 14th. And it's basically, it's a determination to see if the walking tour of wine tasting shops in the city is permissible, given the lack of clarity on our codes regarding walking tours in the retail space. And the Commission determined that the walking tour of the wine tasting shop is permissible and can be approved with only a business license as a walking tour with additional conditional approval. And the staff has brought the resolution to memorialize the findings. Quick background on the business, Wandering Tours. It is proposing a walking tour of the wine tasting shops in the Central Commercial as well as the Service Commercial District. And they're limiting to 12 people and visiting only 3 wine tasting shops. And the duration will be about 2.5 to 3 hours. And their business model and vision is going to be to educate the customers on the various type of local wines, as well as they've chosen a route that will showcase Carmel's artistic, architectural, and gastronomical points of interest between the 3 stops. And there will be no tours on Sundays, and the meeting place would be on the north parking lot at the Sunset Center. And the 2 concerns the Planning Commission had last month were regarding city liability as well as the tour size. And the resolution states that the applicant shall add the City of Carmel and as an additional insurer under the insurance policy. And also the applicant shall have all the participants of the walking tours sign a release of waiver and hold harmless for the city. And there is a limit to of 12 people per tour. And so staff is supportive of adopting the resolution, making an administrative determination. And this concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for staff from the commission? Thank you, sir. Are there anyone from the public that would like to make comments at this time regarding the resolution?
We may have the applicant here tonight.
Oh, the applicant is here?
Perhaps.
Is the applicant here? Would they like to come forward?
I think they're online.
Oh, they're online, okay. I can't see that, so. Is anybody there? Oh, here we go. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
So it's Louise Bristow. Louise Bristow, I don't know if you wanted to, as the applicant, if you wanted to make any comments. We just wanted to give you the opportunity if you'd like to. Okay, looks like not, Mr. Chair.
does she knows how to unmute herself? Okay, I guess not. All right. Members of the public can come up this time and address the commission regarding this application. Okay, no one coming forward. No hands going up online. So I will close the public comments, open up the commissioners for their comments. Commissioner, would you,
I'm a yes.
you
I'm prepared to make a motion.
want to move this right on? Okay, we can make a motion.
I move adoption of the resolution making an administrative determination 23-155 for wandering tours to allow the establishment of business that provides walking tours of wine tasting shops in the commercial and service commercial districts with a conditionally approved business license. And this also includes special conditions, adoption of the resolution, including special conditions 3 through 11.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the resolution as presented by staff. Is there any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke? Yes. Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, the next item.
And Mr. Chair, I believe the next item.
Yeah, the next item
was
has
requested to
been
be continued. Yeah,
Was that the request of the applicant?
that's correct.
Okay. So that's item DS 23-109, the Chadwick. That's been continued to a date to be determined, I assume?
I believe so, Evan. So, yeah. Yeah, so you'll still need to open public comments.
Oh,
and-
that's
yeah.
right, yes. Okay, so is there any comments from the public? Anyone that wish to make any comments on this, on the Chadwick project? This is a consideration of a Track 1 design study, referral and associated coastal development permit for the installation of a driveway gate located on Scenic Road 2 northwest of 8th Avenue in the R1 district.
Oh, this isn't connected. Did you drive it?
Okay, no one coming forward, so we'll just move on to the next item on the public hearings.
All
So-
right. Go ahead, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so the next item is a design study. This is DS 23-104, the Smith Project. This is consideration of a Track 1 major design study, referral for the demolition of a 127 square foot carport and construction of a 250 square foot detached garage in the front yard setback. It's located on the northeast corner of San Carlos Street and 13th Avenue. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just stretching out a little bit here, Mrs. Wallace is just getting the presentation loaded up, but just so you know, this is a bit of a unique project. This is something we referred up, and you're simply considering a garage in the front setback. The reason we're here tonight, of course, is because garages in the front setback require approval of the Planning Commission. It's not a major development project. It's just focusing on that garage in the front setback. So if you'll indulge us for a second, it sounds like I can hear the footsteps coming right now. Catherine should be here at any moment, and we'll get the
Okay,
presentation
all right.
loaded up. So apologize for the delay. I don't know if any commissioners have an interesting story they want to tell the public.
This is your opportunity.
That's right. This is your opportunity to regale the
You know, I have a
public.
slideshow from my last,
There you go. Yeah.
Special call out to the people who participated and volunteered for the 4th of July activities. That was amazing. The park looked fantastic, thanks to Carmel Cares.
It was a great event.
They did
indeed.
good work.
This is what they call vamping in the industry. We're vamping on stage here, just filling time.
I met my next door neighbor there.
For the first time?
Not for the first
Okay.
time. It was my surprise. That's so California. I met my next door neighbor 2 miles away from my house.
That's right, yeah. You're doing good. We were just catching up with each other. No big deal. Yeah.
What did I miss?
Well, we had a nice chat about the 4th of July. It was good. All right. I think we're ready to go. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, there we go.
We'll be talking about the Track 1 major referral, design study 23104 Smith. The property is located northeast of San Carlos and 13th. It's a 4,000 square foot lot. There's an existing 1,1219 square foot house and an existing 127 square foot attached carport. The property is not historic. The project proposes to demo the existing carport and replace it with a new 250 square foot detached garage in the front setback. The applicant is proposing to reduce the site coverage. They are also proposing to remove asphalt from the right-of-way, except for the driveway. We'll talk a little bit about this later. They are not proposing any tree removal or trimming, and no changes to the main house, no exterior changes. The reason this project is being referred to the Planning Commission is because new garages in the front yard setback necessitate certain findings by the Planning Commission. Here, we're just looking at the location of the existing carport, which does not encroach into the front setback, and the proposed garage, which will encroach 6 feet 2 inches into that 15 feet front yard setback. This is the existing west elevation, the facade. On the top, the existing carport, it's 8 feet 10 inches tall. And then on the bottom, the proposed garage, which is 11 feet 4 inches, and it is well under the allowed height of 15 feet. This is the south elevation. The south elevation does include 1 window opening and 1 door, both of which are proposed to match the materials of the main house. This is the north elevation. And then no changes at the rear of the house. So the code stipulates that a minimum of 200 square feet of floor area should be reserved for parking, and it needs to be at least 10 feet by 20 feet. So we're meeting those conditions here with the proposed project. This property is not over on their floor area, and with the addition of a 200 square foot garage, they will still be under their allowed floor area. The proposed total will be 1,522, and the allowed is 1,800. So the Planning Commission can authorize detached garages in the front yard setback if they meet 5 standards. One is that they not exceed 12 feet in width, which this one does not, or 250 square feet in floor area, or 15 feet height. So this project checks all those boxes. And now we'll go through the 5 specific findings. The first being that at least 50% of the adjacent right-of-way is landscaped or preserved in a natural and forested condition to compensate for the loss of open space. The applicant is willing to replace the existing asphalt in the right-of-way, except for that driveway, and replace it with landscaping. However, as we saw on the site today, and as described in the staff report, there is an existing sidewalk that extends all the way from 13th to downtown on the east side of San Carlos Street, used by pedestrians coming from the Sunset Center or accessing that bus stop, which is, there are 2 bus stop locations at that intersection. So this is, right now it's a condition of approval that the applicant pulls out the asphalt sidewalk in front of the property to the west. However, the south right-of-way doesn't have any sidewalk on it now. It's fully forested and natural, so we'd like to hear the Planning Commission if they have a preference about retaining the sidewalk or ripping it out. If it is retained, this finding could still be met because adjacent right-of-way could count as that south portion. This is a photo of the front right-of-way, and I don't have a photo of the south right-of-way, but that's the dirt and trees. Finding 2 is that the proposed setback encroachment would not impact significant or moderately significant trees, and there are no significant or moderately significant trees within where the proposed garage is going. There is an oak quite close to the proposed garage, but the architect is confident they will not need to submit for a trimming permit. And if that changes, they'll either modify the project, they will modify the project to avoid that. Finding 3, free and safe movement of pedestrians and vehicles in adjacent right-of-way is protected. The proposed garage would be 8 feet 10 inches set back from the west property line and approximately 7 feet from San Carlos Street. Staff feels that this is sufficient distance for safety of someone backing out of a garage, especially because they are right at the intersection and vehicles are naturally slowing to a stop and looking both ways. And then pedestrian access to the bus stop, be it on a hardscape sidewalk or dirt, will be maintained. Finding 4, all development on the site will be in scale with adjacent properties and the neighborhood context consistent with the adopted design guidelines. The proposed detached garage will be 11 feet 4 inches high, well under the 15 feet allowed. There will be a shed roof form that slopes up to the south. It will be lower than the existing gabled roof line of the house. It will appear prominent because it's at the front of the property in front of the house. However, there's precedent of garages similarly sited along San Carlos Street. Because of that sidewalk, there's not really parking in the right-of-way like we see elsewhere throughout the village. So staff does feel like it's an appropriate location for a garage. A garage could go at the southeast corner of the lot, accessed off 13th Avenue, but that would require the removal of 2 trees. So we feel like the San Carlos access is the right location for it. Additionally, a carport has been in that location since the 1960s. And then the last finding, the placement of the garage or carport in the setback will add diversity to the neighborhood streetscape. Often we come to the Planning Commission and claim that a proposed garage will be maybe the first on the block that's in the front setback. That's not the case here. There are many garages in the front setback along San Carlos Street in this area. Again, it's a main traffic artery that supports both vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and the paved sidewalk really prohibits parking in the right-of-way. However, even though there is a predominance of garages, there is already a considerable diversity of appearances. Some are detached, some are attached, some are incorporated with the design of the main house. There are many different roof forms and materials. There's only one other shed roof, and it's oriented in a different direction. And so staff feels the proposed project does add diversity in form and materials and style and that kind of thing. But I will click through some of the photos of the other garages on the subject block. You can see some are attached, 1-story, 2-story, stucco, wood shingle. We have horizontal wood siding. There's board and batten. On the left is the one other shed roof garage, sloping west towards the street. And then one property does not have a garage in the front setback there. So staff found the proposed project to be compliant in all these areas, forest character, because no tree trimming or removal is happening. Staff did not identify any privacy or view impacts. Staff finds that the garage would be subordinate to the house because it is below the roof line of the home. The window and door would match the house. They would be wood. Comp shingle roofing to match the house. Site coverage, they are reducing the site coverage 2 times the amount of floor area they're adding, so they're meeting that condition. Landscaping, we'll talk about tonight whether you want to see that west right-of-way landscaped or maintained. There is non-conforming fencing on the property that's existing and is proposed to just be maintained. And at this time, there's no exterior lighting to review. So these are the draft conditions. The applicant has communicated intent to comply with all of these conditions, but the one we'd like to talk about tonight is that right-of-way. And no neighbor correspondence has been received about this project. So the staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving this design study with conditions as we conclude.
Okay, are there any questions for staff from the commissioners? No questions? All right, thank you very much. Okay, this time would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation to the commission?
I'm simply here to answer questions. I have nothing to add to the staff report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the architect?
Pardon me.
I was just asking the
Mackenzie
commission.
Patterson.
Yeah, I just asking the commissioners if they have any questions for you. No. Nope, okay, thanks very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward at this time and comment on this application to the commission? Okay, anybody online? I can't see the online. Anybody raising their hand?
Yes, we do have Shirley Moon first.
Okay, Ms. Moon, would you like to make your comments?
Sure. First of all, I don't agree with the idea of encroaching in the front setback, that it adds some diversity to the streetscape. One of the most beautiful streets that was acknowledged in the design traditions workshops was Casanova between 11th and 13th. If you go down that street, you won't see a garage poking out into the street. Having said that, along that same street that you're on San Carlos, you can go closer to town and you'll find a garage in the front setback. And it's so far in the setback that a car cannot pull into the driveway. It has to park sideways, which does not help the streetscape one bit. So my question is, does this have enough space so the cars can be pulled up to the garage door? People don't tend to put their cars in the garage, and now they're parking sideways on San Carlos, and there are several places on Carpenter Street where the cars are actually parking in the front yard because they can't park in the existing driveway. So I have no other, this is just a general comment that I hope you consider on this application and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. See Cindy Lloyd has her hand up. Cindy, you want to address the commission?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor LePage, members of the Planning Commission. My only comment is aesthetics. I think the proposed garage complements the house beautifully and is an improvement over the carport. I've kind of looked at that carport for many years, having lived on San Carlos growing up and driving San Carlos. So my only comment again is aesthetics, and I think it's an improvement.
Okay, thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up, and nobody in the chambers coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Allen, would you like to begin?
Sure. So I do share a safety concern and also the concern that there is enough space between what is currently the sidewalk and the front of the garage in order to park a car, because there is no other area to park the car unless then I guess you park it on the street. And so, so that would be a concern for me. The other concern is I live on a busy street. I have to back into my driveway just to be able to pull out during the day. And so it is kind of a safety concern if there isn't room to be able to see if cars are coming. And then in terms of the sidewalk, I am a little bit torn because I think that, yes, aesthetically, it would be beautiful if we could go back to having it landscaped and a pathway that was beautiful and well done. The sidewalk currently isn't beautiful by any means, but it does serve a purpose, and so I think I would tend to go with the concept that we should keep the sidewalk in order to have a safe walking path for people, because it was ivy on the across the street on the other side. So so other than that, I do think that it's a nice project and that it is very thoughtful in design and looks like something that would, you know, end up to be more aesthetically attractive than the carport.
So just for clarification, are you not in agreement with staff's determination that it doesn't present a safety problem?
So,
or you just have a concern about it?
I, from a personal standpoint, I am a little bit concerned about the safety of it. I'm not sure I'm in full agreement with the staff's recommendation that it's safe, but I do understand that there is not another option, because I would not want the driveway, obviously, and the garage on 13th.
Okay, I just wanted to get some clarification. Before we move on with the discussion, I wanted to ask staff a question, which I probably should have asked earlier, and that is, asphalt is not supported in the right-of-way at this time, and so is there a long-term objective for that asphalt sidewalk that runs along San Carlos there, or do you have any comments on that?
Sounds like the question is about the whole block.
So right now, there's no initiative for that whole block. You're correct in that our design guidelines talk about how the right-of-way should be treated, and asphalt is not desirable. That's why we have language in our code like this. When you see, if you're gonna get the benefit of putting a garage in the front setback, then we want something back from you. That's why there's language in there about, you know, at least 50% of the right-of-way should be landscaped in order to grant that privilege of having a garage in the front setback. You know, what we pointed out is that you could make the determination that 50% of the right-of-way adjacent to this property is already landscaped with that, you know, southern side. But certainly you could take away from the fact that policies like that exist, meaning that asphalt is definitely not wanted and intended to go away eventually, to come back to some sort of natural forested edge like we see in the residential districts. Now, that doesn't hold true in the commercial districts. This is a residential district, though. Does that answer?
So is it, I mean, typically, when we have an application like this, it's an opportunity for the city to have the changes that they would like made to the right-of-way, and also to bring it into compliance.
That is correct.
So
And what
in
we're-
this situation, it seems to me you've got a walkway, which is very important to a very busy street.
Mhm.
It's just that it's paved with something that isn't supported by our guidelines.
That's correct. And so we were hoping to give you.
I guess what I'm asking specifically, and I don't know if staff addressed this, I don't remember them addressing if they want it changed specifically. It's not in the resolution as a condition.
I think.
Is that in there as a resolution?
I think it is.
It is. The staff recommendation was to remove the sidewalk, asphalt, everything but the driveway.
So that is in the resolution?
That was our original staff recommendation, and based on feedback, we wanted to give the commission options if you felt like that sidewalk was so important to safe pedestrian travel and a natural solution couldn't be
Okay,
found to
so
make it safe.
Condition number 25 is prior to building permit inspection, happens to remove all the asphalt in the public right of way. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on with our discussion. Commissioner Locke.
Sure. I think this is an interesting question, though. I think that the proposed garage is an improvement over what's there currently. I agree with Commissioner Allen to make sure that there's enough space that you could put a car between the sidewalk and the garage door, because, yes, I would say you'd be backing in for the most part because of the amount of traffic on that street. I think this is a unique situation. Just while we were there visiting this today, there were many cars coming around that corner and cutting the corner. I used to live in that neighborhood. I walked my dog there frequently. And I think there is definitely a safety concern. I would be supportive of keeping the sidewalk. I think that that sidewalk runs from 13th all the way past 4th Avenue, and it's a continuous sidewalk. It's used by people who visit Sunset Center at night, and then also people who are walking and using the bus stops down there. I've seen elderly people with walkers and that kind of thing using that sidewalk. So to have that suddenly stop and potentially create a safety hazard where there's no curb and there's no safe walking area right there, I think that would be unfortunate. So I'm supportive of keeping it, although I definitely understand why we would encourage that. I think, like it was said, the south side of that property is natural, and it's completely not something anybody wants to walk on. Again, I've walked this many a time, and the cars go by there really fast. So I really think it is a safety issue. And I think that's really all I had to say about it. It's an improvement.
Okay, Commissioner Dels, your comments?
So I'm supportive of the garage in the location proposed. Yes, it's a busy street. If this was pushed all the way forward to the lot line, I think it would be a real problem. We've seen some of those on Carpenter in the past, but it's the main thing I paid attention to really when I was out there is, are you going to be able to get out safely into the street? It's a busy street, so yeah, you have to be careful. But we can't force somebody to back in, or, you're right, they'll figure it out that that's the right way to do it. And I think the design is fine. My only comment really is on the sidewalk. I don't, in this case, we can just say, well, the south side setback is already landscaped, good to go. But if we get when we get the next one and we start having to address keeping the sidewalk or not on San Carlos, I really think we need to keep that sidewalk for all the reasons stated before. It's a very busy street. It's where the majority of bus bus users do get on, other than right in the downtown. And I really don't think we want to be putting landscaping back to the curb like we do on every other street in town. I think we want to preserve the ability to walk there. Now, if we want to be removing asphalt and replacing it with dirt or something, I think we got to be careful about, granted, the asphalt is not a smooth surface in this town, and maybe dirt would be smoother, or maybe permeable pavers as an option, but or we just leave the asphalt. I'm saying we want to keep a walking path there that is free of landscaping, whatever the surface ends up being. And I'm open to any surface, including leaving the asphalt. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Petkoff?
Yeah, I live in the Mission Tract, so I do walk that sidewalk when I come back from town or when I come back from the Sunset Center. So it's very practical sidewalk, very important, especially in the rainy season when everything is wet. You don't want to go, on the street where you have a lot of water and debris. Also, traffic is heavy, so you do want to be on the sidewalk. It's not safe to be on the street. In terms of asphalt versus other cover. I think I don't like the look of the asphalt because it's very uneven. It doesn't look very, there are a lot of patches as well, but I'm not sure exactly what the alternative is, so we have to think about that. On the proposal for the garage itself, I like that the garage the proposed garage is subordinate to the house. On one of the photographs, I saw a truck. And I assume the idea is to park this truck in the garage. That's why they need a bigger structure for that. But looking at the orange netting, it looked like the garage will go about 8 to 9 feet in front of the current, structure. That means that there will be enough space for a small car to park in the front, but not for a large truck. The truck is not going to be able to park in front of it. So if that's the purpose of the whole exercise, is to find a appropriate accommodation for the truck, then the space in front of the garage is not going to be enough. And in this case, I would like to ask if we can explore the option of keeping the garage attached to the house and having this additional 3 feet added to the space, right? Because right now there are 3 feet behind it, between the garage and the house. I'm not sure exactly what the purpose is of this space. Is it going to be a walkway or anything else?
So you could, one thing you could do is you could ask the designer to come up and ask them the question. You are correct, there's space right now between the garage and the house. Mm-hmm. The garage is also 20 feet, 10 inches deep, so our typical garages are 10 by 20. Mm-hmm. So there's an extra 10 inches there. So you can ask, right now you could ask the designer to come up if the chair would indulge that, to ask that question.
Whether the garage was attached. Yeah, I was going to ask the designer.
Whether or not the garage could be attached.
Should be attached,
I can go back to the slide, though.
My question to
has
the
to be
architect was,
attached.
why is the garage
It doesn't have to
detached?
be that far.
I mean, why are they proposing this? It seems, I'm not sure that I agree with staff's assessment that it doesn't present a safety hazard. We were standing there, it's a really busy intersection. And according to the plans, there's 8'8" to the property line. I'm assuming that right of way, I can't see what that is, and it was probably maybe 5, 6, 7 feet. So I think staff told me there was less than, what did you say it was to the curb?
I believe 8 feet, 10 inches from the face of the garage to the west property line, and I'll have
If
Mr.
anybody's
Patterson come
If
up.
they park in front of the garage, they're going to be parked on that walkway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's going to be, does the architect want to come up and answer a few questions?
And so while they're coming up, Mr. Chair, Catherine very wisely pointed out that one of the requirements for this garage in the front setback thing is that it has to be a detached garage. It doesn't specify that it has to be 3 feet detached from the house, but it does need to be a detached garage in order to be granted the privilege of being in the front setback. So an inch still counts as a detached garage.
So it's still going to be, it's going to end up
It has
gonna
to be
in the
detached.
setback because there's not enough room.
That's correct.
So
Yeah,
it's
you'd have-
still going to, whether it's attached or detached, it's
Yeah.
still going to be.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, certainly some questions from the, answered by the designer or architect would be helpful,
Okay.
I assume.
All right, would the architect want to come up for a minute so we can?
Pardon me. I can only say that initially, I had intended to attach the garage, but I was trying to conform with the requirement.
Of requirement that,
That it
on
be
the, up on the
detached.
screen right now.
It has to be attached. So up on the screen right now, you'll see this is one of the requirements for a garage to be approved in the front setback. It has to be a detached garage.
Oh, it has, I understand
Yeah,
what
it
you're
has to
saying.
be. It doesn't have
So
to
if it's
be,
attached, then it can't be in the front.
correct. It doesn't have to be
So it's
detached
gotta
as
be
far as this
detached.
one is.
There's a minimum clearance between the,
Nope, it could be an inch.
Are we saying it could be 1 inch?
that's what he just said, could be an
It could be
inch.
half an inch.
I'm going to say, whatever you guys want, we'll do.
All right, I see the dilemma. I see the dilemma now. Thank you. Okay, it's gotta be detached. No choice, no choice. So I guess the only discussion is, how detached do we want it to be?
So,
Yeah, anything less than about 30 inches becomes kind of unusable, I think. So, yeah, that kind of, all right. So, based on that, do any other commissioners have any other comments?
I'm
That
just
change?
looking, you've got 8 feet, 8 inches from the front of the garage door to the property line. And then you've got 3 feet of setback, of space between the garage and the home. If you even push the garage a foot closer to the house, that buys another foot on the other side, obviously. And now you're almost at 10 feet, and that seems enough.
Yeah, so the
I
question
mean,
is.
maybe not for a big truck, but we're not trying to solve for a specific vehicle here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess the question in my mind is reducing that setback between the house and the garage, does that provide a significant increase in safety for, or parking the vehicles? I think the safety issue is just kind of, it's baked in, it is what it is, because it's right on the corner, and you're gonna be backing out into traffic onto San Carlos. That's a 4-way stop, isn't it? So all the cars are stopping, so that mitigates some of the impacts, I think. Yeah, okay. All right, did you have any more comments, Commissioner Karpeka? I don't want to cut you off, I kind of
No,
jumped in there.
I don't know if that's relevant, but it looks on the plan that the proposed garage will be over the gas pipe and over the water supply to the house. So they will need to do extensive work when they do the foundation. So that's,
Yeah, that's just part of the building.
Yeah, that's-
Building deal,
yeah,
they have
it's-
to,
it's gonna be a big
Typically, they don't allow you to build a new garage or a new structure on top of service lines, gas,
so
water.
then it's
So
gonna
they,
be.
if they have to have them come out and do an underground survey, that's just part of the building requirement. I'm
That would
sure.
get caught when they submit for
Yeah.
their building permit.
Right,
That would be one of our
that usually happens
corrections.
under the building
Yep.
permit. Okay, yeah, my concerns were too, the safety, and I think everybody's answered my questions about what we've got going on here as far as this. And then, the long-term plan for that right-of-way there, as Commissioner Delves and all the other commissioners have realized, and it's really important to have a walkway along there, but we need to bring it into conformance. So I think the resolution as presented by staff covers that. And what you see in a lot of places in the city is decomposed granite. And by compacting, you can stabilize that, and if there isn't excessive grades, it won't wash out, and that seemed pretty level there. So, having said that, we have a resolution from staff, which I didn't think needed any additional special conditions added to it, but would a commissioner like to make a resolution to accept that, or change the special conditions, or whatever?
Can we talk a little bit more? So I would actually like, because he's open to moving the garage back, so I think we should move the garage back a foot.
Make a motion as
Okay.
such.
And then I'm still not completely decided on the sidewalk issue either.
Well, I
Because
think
it
as it's
seems-
stated, basically they gotta take it out, so whatever they put back's gotta be supported by the guidelines. So it's not, it has to be supported by whatever they put back. And that, what are those, you've got DG, you've got Bark, what are they?
Yeah, we would work with them to find, so if you're gonna leave it as is, we'd work with them to find a conforming material, whatever would
And-
provide safe passage and still meet the city's design criteria.
So I'm just visualizing this, and it's odd to me that we would have then this one house at the corner that doesn't have a sidewalk, but then the whole entire rest of the sidewalk goes all the way downtown. Like, that seems odd to me.
So,
Well, there would still
Catherine,
be a
can you put up-
walkway, it just wouldn't be
Can you
asphalt.
put up a picture that shows this, the house from the front? I think you might have had one, because it would be sort of illustrative, the actual picture. Shoot. So if you look, nope. There you go, perfect, that's the one. So if you look at this picture up on the screen right now, on the right-hand side, on the southern side of the house, you can see what's there. It's all dirt and trees. So essentially what would happen is that dirt walkway would take a right and then continue in front of this home, and then the transition, instead of being right there at the corner from asphalt to dirt, would be one property down.
Is that a bus stop?
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then on the
Interesting.
other side of the driveway, we're gonna ask them to remove that little strip also
Correct.
that is on their property line. And so then the dirt wraps around, and then they have a driveway, and then more dirt, and then the sidewalk starts.
That's correct.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
So if you naturalize that sidewalk, then it becomes not a sidewalk and people can actually park their cars on it.
There's a curb there, I believe.
There is a
No,
curb,
because
but
you,
yeah.
well, wouldn't you naturalize it at that point and get rid of the curb as well?
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't think,
Good
I don't think we
point.
would get rid of the
no,
curb.
we're not getting rid of the curb.
Yeah.
Plus it's-
We have plenty, if you walk around,
Plus
we have
it's
plenty
marked
of,
red, no parking.
plenty of curbed
Okay.
area with
Yeah,
dirt
it's got it.
between the property
Yeah,
line.
it's
Yeah.
marked red, no parking.
It's part of the drainage system, so we would keep the curb there.
I be prepared to make a motion? Unless
Go
you-
ahead.
No, go right ahead.
So I move to approve the resolution in our packet with two changes. One is that, and I'm not quite sure where to put it, maybe it's a specific condition, but that the front of the garage be pushed back so that it is 10 feet from the property line. Then that leaves it up to the applicant how they solve for that, whether you want to shorten up the garage, put it an inch away from the house. You have leeway to figure that out, but the front of the garage will be 10 feet instead of 8 feet 8 inches from the property line, so east of the property line. And then secondly, on the condition for the right-of-way, 25, prior to the building permit final inspection, the applicant shall remove all asphalt in the public right-of-way except for the driveway and install dirt, mulch, and/or plantings as approved by the city forester. I think we need to get more specific, and I would say that if we're going to remove the asphalt, and I'm proposing we do, that it would be that the sidewalk function be retained via the installation of dirt, mulch, or other, what did
To
you
work
say?
with staff. You can
Yeah.
work with staff to provide an acceptable material that maintains the walkway or the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
But not with plantings. So I would remove the planting
Okay.
part.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the resolution as presented by staff with two additional changes to special condition. One is that the setback to the front of the garage to the property line be 10 feet, and that, number 25, special condition that the word planting shall be removed. You want to add walkway, that a walkway be maintained? And a walkway be maintained?
The functional, the function of a
Functional walkway
walkway
be
be
maintained.
maintained.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I ask for a clarification just for implementation of the condition?
Yes.
For the maker of the motion, I think what you probably mean is that a minimum of 10 feet from the property line. Because if we say, if a condition reads as 10 feet from the property line, it's an exacting measurement, so we would require them to be exactly 10 feet. So are you comfortable with the condition saying a minimum of 10
that's
feet?
fine.
Okay,
Okay, that
thank you.
meets, I think that meets the intent of
Yep.
Commissioner Dell's motion.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Thank
we have a motion, it's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Catherine.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to interject here. I apologize. I was remiss on the last item, the continuance. I missed asking you to all take a formal motion to do the continuance.
Oh, yes,
So that technically that
that's-
item is still
that's
open.
my,
Yeah, that's completely my fault. I
remiss.
apologize.
Okay, so we're gonna drop back to item number 3, DS 23-108, the Chadwick project, and the chair makes a motion that we continue this item.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Delves,
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
and Chair LePage.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, now we got the housekeeping out of the way. We can move on to the last item. Like to take a break, anyone? Should we charge straight ahead? Okay. Going into unknown territory here.
Anything interesting on Zoom out there?
All right, enough of this. Okay, this is item number 5 in the public hearings. This is a design study. It's DS 22-057, the LIM project. This is consideration of a concept design study for demolition of an existing 1,053 square foot single-family home, and inclusive of a 205 square foot detached garage and the construction of a new 1,767 square foot two-story single-family home. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just before I begin, I'm passing around a roof sample. If you could all just take a look at it while I'm presenting, that'd
Okay,
be great.
thank
I'll be
you.
asking you a question about it at the end of the presentation. Okay, so the subject site is a 4,000 square foot lot currently developed with a 1,258 square foot residence inclusive of a 205 square foot detached garage. The applicant is proposing to demolish all improvements on the site and construct a new 1,767 square foot residence. That includes a new 1,270 square foot lower floor. That includes a 270 square foot attached garage and a new 497 square foot upper floor. The site contains a number of significant trees on site. One of the trees has been already approved for removal by the Forest and Beach Commission as the health of the tree has declined since it's been evaluated. A condition of the tree removal is that the tree be replaced by a new upper canopy tree, which the applicant has indicated on their site plan, which is right here. And that's also been included as condition of approval number 2. This didn't make it into the presentation, but there's also a draft condition of approval number 4 stating that a landscape plan shall be submitted prior to final details review. There is currently a note on the plan saying that a natural and forested condition throughout the property shall be maintained. However, a landscape plan is required. The applicant has also provided a tree protection plan. The development is set back 6 feet from all trees on site as well as the neighboring trees. However, once the story poles were installed, we did identify a tree branch encroachment into the story poles. So this encroachment was unknown until the story poles were installed, which was following the Forest and Beach Commission hearing. In discussion with the Forestry Department, tree pruning permits are analyzed differently from tree removal permits, and the applicant's ability to prune the tree is not automatically precluded, much like the ability to remove a healthy, significant tree. That requires specific findings be made. Concept design guideline finding number 7 prohibits the removal of significant trees, however, does not prohibit pruning or limb removal. Although design guideline 1.2 encourages using building design or roof designs that avoids requiring extensive pruning to limbs and canopies. So staff has included condition of approval number 3 that states, prior to scheduling for a final details review, the applicant shall submit a tree pruning permit application to be reviewed and approved by the Forestry Department. Should the tree pruning permit not be approved, the applicant shall prepare a revised design that does not require the pruning or removal of the subject branches. So in respect to privacy and views, staff has been contacted by one neighbor, that's the neighbor to the north, who stated that they have privacy and view concerns. The subject site is outlined in the solid line, and the neighbor is identified in the dashed line. So the issues were brought to staff's attention by the neighbor during the site assessment, as story poles were already installed on site. The story poles and images on the screen are representative of figure 1B, which is that elevation on the top left, which is part of the initial project plans that were submitted to the city. The neighbor expressed concerns regarding privacy, view, and light, concerns related to their breakfast nook, kitchen window, and lower floor bedroom. Staff noted the neighbor's concerns in the preliminary site assessment report, which was provided to the applicant. The applicant was able to meet with the neighbor at the neighbor's home to view and discuss the area's concern, and that meeting took place on or around May 19th of last year. So following the meeting with the neighbor, the applicant revised the project plans in an effort to address the neighbor's concerns. Some notable changes are the ridge height was dropped about 3.4 feet. The second story plate height was dropped 3 feet. The finished floor level was dropped 2 feet, and the building was shifted 2 feet. These measurements were all taken using the elevation points identified in the project plans. So in respect to privacy, the windows proposed do not pose any impacts to any of the adjacent neighbors. To the north, there is just one window, this gold window, or the star. That is a opaque window in a bathroom, and that's the only window on the north elevation. These are the other second floor windows, two facing the street. There's a bay window here that faces south, and a set of 3 windows and a staircase also facing south. As we saw on the site tour, this overlooks just a neighbor's roof to the south. And then this is a second floor deck. The shaded section is a covered section of the deck, and then this is a uncovered section. To the south, it's screened by a large tree, and then to the east, it's a very significant setback. So staff does not believe there are any privacy impacts associated with the project. So in respect to solar access, the solar access design objective states that designs should preserve the rights to reasonable solar access on a neighboring parcel. Excessively tall buildings, particularly those near a north property line, which would block the free passage of sun onto neighboring solar collectors or south-facing windows on neighboring sites, should be avoided. The building height is proposed to be 20 feet 2 inches tall, where 24 feet are allowed. So it's about 4 feet less than what's allowed, and about 2 feet taller than what's allowed for a one-story building. The north setback is also proposed to be on the ground floor 5 feet 3 inches and 7 feet 3 inches on the second floor, where the minimum setback is 3 feet. So it's far more significant than the minimum required. And then in respect to the view impact, at the time of writing the staff report, staff was unable to photograph the revised story poles, so not the original story poles as are shown on the screen, but what we saw on tour today. As the neighbor was out of the country, staff did, however, perform a comparative analysis using the existing photographs and current and previous plans as reference. So finding number 5 for concept design study approval states that the project is consistent with the city's objectives for public and private views. So public views speaks to significant coastal views. However, there are no significant coastal views associated with the project, so that finding is not applicable. And then in respect to private views, the goal is to balance the private rights to views for all parcels, and that no single parcel should enjoy a greater right than other parcels except the natural advantages of each site's topography, Buildings which substantially eliminate an existing significant view on another parcel should be avoided. So really the question for the commission today is, are the views balanced between the two parcels? Is one view being substantially eliminated? That's what should be considered as part of your discussion today. So in terms of mass bulk, building, and roof form, the roof is moderately pitched at 4 and 12 throughout, as encouraged by the residential design guidelines. The building's also proposed to essentially be a rectangular form, also as encouraged by the residential design guidelines. I mentioned this before, the ridge height is proposed to be 20 feet 2 inches tall, which is 4 feet less than what's allowed. Plate heights are also less than what's allowed. The maximum height for the second floor plate height is 16 feet 9 inches, where 18 feet is allowed, with fairly low interior plate heights at 7 feet for the second floor, and a range of 8-foot plate heights to 10-foot plate heights on the ground floor. So while this is just a concept hearing, I do have a few questions for you regarding the finished details. So staff is generally supportive of the exterior finishes and materials for the project. However, we are asking for your feedback on the proposed metal roof, which I just passed around. One concern is the location of the roof in proximity to the neighboring windows and any potential impacts due to the reflectivity of the metal roof. So if the metal roof is not appropriate, we are looking for that feedback now. And then as a reminder, we do have that condition that a landscape plan needs to be submitted prior to final details review. And then if you have any other comments regarding the finished details that are up on the slide now, you're more than welcome to make comments. And then the project is also in 2 overlay districts, the Coastal Commission Appeal Jurisdiction, as well as the Archaeological Significance Overlay. This is just for reference. I will get into those details at the final details hearing. And then we have received a number of public correspondences on the project. Specifically, the neighbor from the north has had the primary concerns. We toured their home today. They state, as you know, we are very concerned that the height of what they are proposing, they being the applicant, will impact our trees, our views, and the light we receive downstairs. The neighbor also provided an independent analysis of the city's standards and design guidelines that was included as an attachment to the staff report. And then additional neighbor correspondence was submitted in support of the north neighbor, though the other neighbors do not appear to be immediately impacted by the project. And with that, staff recommends that the commission adopt a resolution accepting a concept design study, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are the questions from the commissioners for the staff?
Yeah, Evan, you mentioned changes that have been made to essentially reduce the mass and scale of the home already. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't. Can you say it? Go through that again for me, please.
The numeric values I gave?
Yes.
So the ridge height has been dropped 3.4 feet. The second story plate height has been dropped by 3 feet. The finished floor has been dropped by 2 feet. And the building has been shifted south to 2 feet.
South by 2 feet.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. Today, when we did a tour, we were looking at a nook, like a breakfast nook, on the north neighbor side.
At the neighbor's house?
Yeah. Is that the area marked as pavers here? Is that on top of that area?
No, I believe this is on the ground floor. This is.
That's the ground floor, but the nook is above that, right?
I believe the nook is right here. Do I have that correct? This is where the nook would be.
It's over to the right.
It's over.
Keep going, right about there.
So,
Yeah, that's-
Okay,
that's
okay,
exactly-
sorry,
okay,
I misunderstood the
When
question.
yeah, we can get some clarification on that when you come up and speak, so we'll get some clarification on that better. Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Evan. All right, would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation at this time?
Good afternoon. My name is Angie Ferris. I'm with Hastings Construction. I'm the designer for this project, and I'll be representing my client, Miss Lee Lim. She's the homeowner of this project. Miss Lim has owned this home for the last 10 years.
Angie, would you just get a little bit closer to the microphone for us? Sorry. Thank you.
Sure. Miss Lee has owned this home for the last 10 years, preparing for this to be one day her forever home. For her and her family. She enjoys the neighborhood a great deal. A lot of thought and consideration has gone into the design of this home, with the understanding that any increase in its size would have an impact on the neighborhood, being that the existing home has stayed relatively the same over the last decade and is much smaller in comparison to others in the vicinity. I can assure you all it has not been her nor my intention to disrupt the neighborhood in a negative way, quite the opposite. And just like many of the residents here in Carmel, she does just seek to live in this area, enjoy it, and live in a home that she loves. So that being said, the new project is adding a second story to a single story house that has been a single story since the 40s. The exterior is a stucco finish with stone veneer. It does add diversity to the adjacent to the neighborhood itself. A lot of the homes there are wood finish siding. There are some other stucco ones there as well, but this one is adding some stone to it, which kind of makes it a little bit different. Another thing to mention is that the house newly proposed, it does actually bring the house an additional 9 feet away from the front, from the street as it originally sits now. So it is going to be further back, and it is staggered from the other neighbors in the area. So additionally, we did put the story poles up originally in 2022 with anticipation of having some comments from neighbors. Shortly after, we were, contacted by the McCalls, and we did actually make those concessions to meet their wishes in a good faith attempt. And I would like to use the remainder of my time, if possible, to save it for rebuttals at the end, if that's acceptable to.
Yeah, that's fine. You can use the time any way you like.
Okay.
And I assume there'll probably be some rebuttal time with this project. So, you're done with your presentation at this time?
I am.
Okay. Are there any questions for the designer? I had one question. Was a single story concept explored, or was why'd we go to a 2-story? It doesn't seem like. There are some views to the south. I see that, but I just was curious.
We did explore it just due to just trees on the lot and how things were positioned. It was just too large of a footprint to do that. So we did actually explore a basement option, but the site is not too sloped. So doing a basement there is actually financially not feasible for my client, which is why we went to the 2nd story option.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the designer this time? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open it to the public for comment. At this time, any members of the public can come forward and make their comments.
Hi, I'm Gwen McCall. Thank you all today for coming to tour the house. I really appreciate it.
Gwen, would you like me to pull up the slides you sent me?
I don't think I'm going to have time
Okay.
to go through it at this time. Maybe if something comes up later. I do want to just address one thing that Angie stated, which was that they made changes based on our desires. That is not entirely true. Justin called me 2 hours after they came to the house to discuss and suggested some changes and asked if I would approve those changes so that he could go back to his client. And I stated at that time that I could not give verbal approval over a phone call based on what he was giving me because I didn't have the footage and the numbers didn't make that much sense to me. So they did not actually address something specific that I asked for. We were just kind of freaked out by what we were seeing. So I just wanted to make that clarification. I'm sorry my husband Mike isn't here. He is extremely passionate about this situation. He's been back east with his mom since we came back from Spain, and she passed away last night. He did send you all a video statement. I hope you were able to open it. If not, I don't know if we're able to show it. We bought that house in 2019 and have since painstakingly remodeled and updated it inside. We absolutely love our home and we love our neighborhood. We feel incredibly fortunate to be full-time residents of Carmel-by-the-Sea. And although we still have yet to meet Mrs. Lim, we do want her to have her dream home as well. And we would like to be good neighbors. We haven't met her or talked to her. I reached out to her by email, but we were referred to Angie and Justin. We do have serious concerns about the current design next door. Most of our views in natural light come from our south-facing windows, and the proposed structure as it is threatens both. As you saw from our breakfast nook, where we all spend a lot of time, we look at trees and sky. If this design is approved, we will be staring at a blank wall or a frosted bathroom window. Views from our kitchen and dining room will also be impacted. And the current placement of the second story will also choke off the natural light to our daughter's room downstairs, and that light is much needed in my consideration. And I do believe this is an example of what the guidelines call the canyon effect, although with the current numbers and being pushed back, that may not be true. Looking at the story poles, it also appears that our oak trees will have to be hacked to accommodate the structure. That is concerning. Our architect, Victoria Beach, sent you all a detailed analysis citing numerous violations against the design guidelines, and I realize it was a lot of information, but her analysis also demonstrates numerous solutions. I hope you were able to look at it, and I really wish she could have been here to walk us through it, which was the original plan, but she is currently out of the country, flying in tonight, actually. But we all believe, Mike, Victoria, and others that I've spoken with, that there are ways for the Lims to have a beautiful home with all the square footage they deserve while still protecting the sanctity of our home. We are grateful that the design guidelines exist to protect the look and charm of the city, the trees, and the residents who live here. And we really do appreciate you all volunteering your time to uphold and support these guidelines. So we ask that you please consider whether or not this current design is truly compliant with the guidelines and in keeping with the village requirements. What I'm respectfully asking for is a redesign that both upholds the guidelines and also protects our home and our lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other members of the public that would like to come forward and address the commission?
Hi. I'm going to read from my phone. So good afternoon. My name is Dana Van Basie. I've lived in the area since I was in 3rd grade. I am now currently still a resident of Carmel, and I am an active real estate agent who has been selling real estate in Carmel-by-the-Sea for over 17 years. I am an advocate of home improvement and home renovations in the city of Carmel. It enhances our community and also improves real estate values and appreciation for our area. The attraction to our area for most people who are looking to live here is how our homes sit so nicely on their home sites. This is a result of the city of Carmel's coverage limits on lots. Homes do not overpower their lots, and the design guidelines take into consideration how homes are placed next to each other so they don't sit on top of each other or block their light. The idea of building with the land and not just on the land is sort of how I see you guys came up with these guidelines. In regards to the Lim project, last year when I stopped by the McColl's house to see the story poles filling their views, I was actually quite shocked. I've been on countless job sites, and to see the proximity of the future design and the blocking of light and view by the design on the McColl property didn't seem to be in character with the city's design guidelines. Back to my original statement. The improvement of our properties is good for the community, and it does provide appreciation to both the homeowner and the neighborhood. However, in the Lim's current design, if the Lim's current design stays as is, it will negatively impact the valuation of the McColl's home. The only party gaining value is the Lim's property. I certainly do not believe the Lims intentionally want to negatively impact the neighborhood or the neighbor, but the reality is it will devalue the McCall's home. I believe more work and thought needs to be given to the Lim design to allow for a mutually agreeable design that spreads the mass across the site and works with the land versus just placing the house on top of it. Thank you for your time. and hopefully you'll reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else coming forward? All right. Ian?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ian Martin. I'm a resident of Carmel-by-the-Sea and a former planning commissioner. And I believe you have all received architect Victoria Beach's analysis of the ways that the proposed house runs afoul of the design guidelines. But I've got some good news. I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that the Lims get to build a beautiful home that maxes out their square footage, and the McCalls also get to maintain and enjoy everything that it is about their home. The bad news is that we're not there yet, and it's going to require some more design work on the Lims' part. So there are a few ways that the currently proposed design runs afoul of the design guidelines. For example, design guideline 4.1, and I quote, "More open space should be provided along side yards when buildings on adjacent properties are located close to the joint property line. This is particularly important when two-story structures are involved. A design should avoid creating a tunnel or narrow corridor between buildings on adjacent sites." And right now, that second floor really impacts the McCall's breakfast nook. It's really, in effect, the hearth of their home. They gather there on a regular basis, and right now they can look out and they have a forested view. And as we all do in Carmel-by-the-Sea, we cherish our forest and we cherish looking at it. You don't have to have a view of the ocean to have a beautiful view. Right now, the McCalls enjoy an open forested view. And if the plan goes through as proposed, you're going to have a blank wall or a frosted bathroom window. Then we get on to solar access, and the Municipal Code 17.10.10, solar access design should preserve the rights to reasonable solar access on neighboring parcels. Excessively tall buildings, particularly those near a north property line, okay, which would block the free passage of sunlight onto south-facing windows on neighboring sites, should be avoided. So I was over there earlier today, and sunlight was streaming through into their daughter's bedroom down below. But especially in the winter time, with that second floor going where it's proposed to go right now, that goes away, and you're gonna have a little cave down there. And then, we all cherish our trees in Carmel-by-the-Sea. So much of what we do and discuss here in this room depends on, protecting the forest. And those trees, are going to have to be limbed, and you're going to have to convince the Forest and Beach Commission to, remove, branches that are probably that big in diameter to make this thing go through. So, but here's the good news. Right, there's plenty of opportunities for the Lims to adjust the design of their home to respect the McCall's needs. You could shift the second floor over to the southeast corner of the property, right? And if you do that, those oaks, you don't have to touch those oaks. Those oaks are saved, right? Just as they are. And you also preserve the sunlight into the daughter's bedroom, and you also preserve the rights of the McCalls to enjoy their breakfast nook. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, any other members of the public like to come forward and address the Planning Commission regarding this application? I don't see anybody in the chamber coming forward. Anybody online?
We have a video from Mr. McCall.
Okay,
that we can
want to play that? Yeah. Is it 3 minutes or under?
It's 90 seconds.
Yeah, okay, I didn't have a chance to see it. You can't share your screen?
Yeah, we're sharing with the Zoom. And say that, for the record, that we appreciate them.
Can't just hit the play button, huh?
Well, we can, but the audio is not coming out.
Oh, you're not getting any audio? Oh, it's not, it's just,
Hi, this is Mike McCall. I wish I could meet you all in person, but I cannot right now because my mom's very sick and I have to be in Virginia with her. So I just wanted to introduce myself and say that, for the record, that we appreciate Mrs. Lim's desire to have a better situation on her property. It will help the neighborhood, and we certainly support that. And we are only asking for your consideration in terms of how the current plan will affect us and our little cottage that we've spent a lot of time remodeling. We moved from LA right before COVID, and the charm of our house is really about the south-facing windows. So I think if you walk through and you try to put yourself in our shoes, then it will become clear that there are other options that where everybody could win, and that's all we really want, is just to have a build next to us that is in line with this commission's way of thinking. We certainly appreciate you being here for the community and your efforts to ensure that we all find the best way to have what we want in paradise. Thanks so much.
okay. All right, there weren't any other people online with their hands up? I can't see it. Okay. All right, I'm going to allow the designer some rebuttal time. I said I would, 3 minutes.
Okay, just to touch base on what Ms. McCall had said, I wanted to just mention that we did meet with her. We discussed that she was having issues with it being too close to her house and that she was concerned about views being blocked by the second story. So what I meant was that we did make some changes to try and reduce that impact by lowering the ridge heights, lowering the plate heights, making the foundation a slab versus a raised floor. We've also shifted the entire footprint of the home 2 feet to the south, which is as much as I could possibly get it to go. So that was what I meant by the changes. Additionally, the setbacks are not small that we have going on. The second story is 7'8" from the property line on the north side. I believe that Nook is an additional 3'8" from the property line, so it is a good distance away. In terms of relocating that section of the house, it is touching the branch that is of concern. Thoughts were to perhaps put that other bedroom towards the back of the house, but in my opinion, I feel like it would be more detrimental for the McCalls. It would block more of their view if we were to stretch out the upper level a little bit further to get away from those branches. So that is why it is where it is. I just wanted to make sure that I had mentioned that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Are there
much.
any other questions for the designer?
Yeah, you said that you couldn't go further to the south. Why?
It'd be too close to the setback for one, and we do have some tree issues on that side.
But I thought that the trees that were, that kind of double Y set of trees originally was going to stay, but is not now going to stay.
That's not the one in question. There's currently a 6-inch oak down there that's larger than what it is now. It's larger than 6 inches that we don't want to touch. So the footprint of the house is actually 6 feet away from it. So that's the reason why I couldn't get it any further.
And that's one of the significant trees that was identified?
It's not significant, but it is protected.
Is there, are you through? Is there any,
There also is a significant tree. It's tree 13. It's a maple. It's a little bit farther east on the lot from the tree that's being removed. It's the one that I pointed out that's providing the screening from that second floor deck. That is rated significant.
Is there any reason why the second story couldn't be shifted to the rear of the house? Over the I think it's the living area?
The goal for the living area, since we did have to make everything much shorter in the house, that's where the main living space is, where the kitchen and living room actually is. So we're trying to keep that a little bit higher in plate.
Are those areas vaulted?
They are.
Okay.
We could shift it back. I do feel, though, that is going to impact the McCall's view more so than the way that this house is situated now. The upper story is kind of short right now, and they do have a lot of view out that back area. And if we were to move things back, I think we'd still have the same problem, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the designer? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will allow any of the members of the public come forward with any new comments, not repeating comments. If you have any new comments, you have time, you can come forward and make comment.
Just in regards to your last question about shifting it back, what I see, and again, I'm not a drafter or an architect, obviously, but there's the deck that we walked on today, and there's still more space between the neighbor's yard. And so what I was picturing in shifting it back is that it actually doesn't even, we don't even see it. We would see it from our deck, but that doesn't really bother me that much. It was more shifting it out of the sight of our nook and our kitchen and our dining room. So I just wanted to clarify
So
that.
it's your opinion that if it was shifted towards the rear, that it would have less impact on your views? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'm just saying I don't quite understand why she's saying it would be more, other than that she's stretching it out. So like, would it stay where it is and then get stretched out more? Or why can't that mass be moved literally out of the eyesight
But
of our nook?
if that was done, in your opinion, without obviously having the story poles or the access to a design like that, you think that would have less impact on your
It
property?
seems to me that it would, because we would be looking at it from our driveway and our deck,
Okay.
which we do spend time on our deck, but again, not as much as we do inside.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, anyone else want to make any new comments in the context of what the designer said in her rebuttal?
I can point something out that might be a little
Okay,
helpful.
go ahead.
The deck is right here. It's this outline.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Delves, you want to jump in, or?
Sure. So thanks, everybody. Staff, good work. Thank you to the applicant for making efforts to reduce the mass bulk scale of this thing in round one before you even got to us. That's always helpful. And glad to see neighbors talking and trying to figure this out. We got a lot of input on this one, so I think I need to acknowledge some of the input. The one that was most challenging was from Victoria Beach, citing 67 violations of our design regulations and our building code. Just to be clear, I did read that. It was dumped on us 2 days ago, so I couldn't go counterpoint on it. But really, that she did not identify 67 violations of our code or of our design guidelines. She referenced 67 pieces of our code and our design guideline. She didn't really make a statement pro or con as to how this project does not meet or how it is a violation, nor does it make a statement how it is a violation or not a violation. So the applicant could actually take all 67 of those points and make an argument supporting. The point is they're very subjective, and that's our job, is to go through and do that. But I just have to, on the face of it, reject the fact that we have 67 violations of something here. I don't think we do. I think that we are really dealing with a small number of items here. We do this a lot. You know, we live in a town with 4,000 square foot lots and 2-story buildings on them. So we are constantly looking at orange fences and trying to determine, is that a significant whatever? In this case, I look at the orange fence and I see that, to be clear, I'm looking at the neighbors. When you look out your windows, you see a lot of orange. And you know, that's part of the way at least I go about this, is how much orange am I seeing? And where is it? And in this case, I don't think you have a significant view being blocked. And again, that's a term of art, but when we see significant views, it's typically a water view or some more distant view. Your views very much are into the forest. And a lot of it is nearby trees that are actually your trees, but going over into your neighbor's property. And by and large, I think a lot of those views into the forest are still there. I don't think you have a particular privacy issues either. There's just the one window being proposed, and so from a privacy standpoint, I don't think you're going to have a new neighbor looking into your windows. That said, I still think you do have a legitimate concern, and to me it's the tunneling effect, and this is something we deal with a lot, that this proposal does put a new wall, a new story, very close to your home. They've done a lot already, in my opinion, to move it. They are beyond what is required from a setback standpoint, and I'll just say that. What occurred to me when I was out there was, could this second story be shifted to the south and to the east as much as possible, so to the southeast? And when I was on your deck, again, I'm looking at the neighbors, what I saw was that you do have a view to the southeast. It looks down onto 4th Street and over to there's a 1960s home over there with the tchotchke garden. And I know I can, my personal view would be that that's not an important view, but it might be an important view to you. But I think what I heard you say is that moving the second story to the southeast would be an acceptable solution. I agree with that. And I think that would address the primary concerns based on having been in your home. And thank you for letting us into your home. It really helps us. So I think that's my primary thing. We also had some concerns voiced that this home is somehow not consistent with the neighborhood. I think it's very consistent with the neighborhood, having walked around. There's plenty of larger homes. There's plenty of 2-story homes. This is not a modern intrusion into a traditional neighborhood. The materials are appropriate based on what we've seen so far, although we can come back and talk on the roof. I'm actually okay with the metal roof, but we'll see what my colleagues have to say. So I think that's where I'm at right now. Bottom line would suggest that the second story be moved to the south and east. To the east primarily, and to the south to some extent if possible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dose. Commissioner Allen, you want to make your comments?
Yeah, so I don't think we're there yet. It's a shame because the site is so pretty, and it seems like it just hasn't been maximized with this design. And again, I do have concerns about the views and the light that were shared by the neighbors. Also, I like the idea if it makes sense to shift the upper floor. The thing that I was wondering is, it's such a shame to lose that like detached garage look with, not having to have that upper floor above the garage. But that's just something that I was thinking. I'm actually not in favor of the metal roof. I didn't really like the choice, and I felt like it was like an overly complex design to the structure. And so, I thought maybe if it were potentially built into the slope of the lot a little better, it would just be so much more beautiful in terms of, the way that it kind of nestled into the neighborhood. So at this point, I would need to see some changes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Karapapa?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said today. I think there are some opportunities to maybe improve the design by moving some mass towards the back. I understand the challenge with vaulted ceilings, so maybe the living room and the kitchen need to be in a different place. I don't know. But the idea to move the mass towards the back is not a bad one. I'm not sure if that's going to create any problems if the second story overlooks the patio of the north neighbor, because it's going to be taller, so there will be people will be looking into the patio. And in general, I mean, this is a regular problem here in Carmel. It happens a lot. So even this balcony that I see here, the proposed balcony in the LIMS project, there's no guarantee that the neighbor on the other side will not build a second story and block that balcony. So it would be probably a good idea to have this balcony somewhere more to the west, where you will have some guarantee that no bigger buildings will be, built. So, yeah, that's what I can say about this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Locke, your comments.
Goody. Thank you for your previous comments, everybody. Right off the oak tree with the large branch that wasn't caught during the first netting. That is a concern to me, and that kind of has a lot of weight when it comes to my comments. Given that there is that issue, I think that there does need to be some redesign done. I'd like to see the upper story moved away from that tree. Again, we've talked about possibly going to the southeast if that's possible to do. I heard a suggestion that, Aaron, you suggested that possibly looking at the garage being detached in some way maybe, and creating some more space downstairs to reduce the upper story. That's a concept that might be something to consider. You've got space in the front. The house, as proposed, is set far back from the street. So, I mean, that seems like that could be something that comes up. I do have a concern about the kind of tunnel effect, as mentioned, with the, this is a sloped property. So to say right off the bat that a two-story house next door to the McCall's house is still lower than what would happen on a lot of streets in Carmel. So I think that is in and of itself kind of an advantage, but the location of the second story, especially if it's going to impact the trees, I think it needs to be shifted. And the solar impact on the lower bedrooms, again, if that second story can be moved and opened up, and I do agree that there is some view that I think is going to get impacted on the McCall's property as far as that southeast open area. And if you're, I just think that would be the ideal location to try to do some movement. The metal roof, I don't have really strong feelings. I know we've talked about metal roofs. We've talked about looking at what the impacts are and what we've actually seen constructed right now and how the neighbors are all potentially being impacted. I think it's more of an issue when the neighbor who's looking down on that roof is to the south or directly to an area that would experience reflectivity coming off that roof. And I think because the neighbors here uphill or on the north side, they probably wouldn't have the same impact as somebody who was located in a different area. But again, I'm not real strong on that. What I'm more concerned about is the various different materials that are being proposed between the metal roof, the stone, a vertical fence line, the oriel windows. And I think that there's just a lot of stuff going on there that needs to be reconsidered. The stonework with the vertical fence, to me, is just too busy. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And I think the other thing is that we have in the past kind of tended toward more open fences, not this closed fence. I do see that there's an outdoor shower right there. Obviously, that would have to be screened in some way, but I don't know that it needs to have tight fencing on it. And I think that's pretty much it. I hope that the neighbors can work with the designer on this project. You've got some great resources next door, neighbors. Between Ian and Victoria, they're both very experienced and probably have some good ideas. But I really think it needs to be reworked to open it up a little bit more, and also to look at what kind of materials that are proposed.
Thank you. I appreciate all his comments. It's all good direction. This project really just gets down to one thing for me, and that's the impact, the views to the neighbor. I disagree with staff. I think they are significant. And I think I would suggest a broader understanding of views needs to be taken into consideration when you're looking at this particular part of our guidelines. And the views don't have to be of water or some significant thing. They are just to a treescape, to the air, to the sky. And if you go into those rooms, as Commissioner Delves says, what you see is orange netting, lots of it. And that is significant. It just gets down to, a quantity thing, really. There's just too much orange netting, which represents the second story. That's what it meant to be. So if the second story is built in that particular location, it's going to significantly impact the views of the sunroom off the living room, the dining room, and the eating area, and the kitchen. So that's about half the house upstairs. So that's significant. And it is a view, and I don't think it needs to be have value that has to do with whether it's ocean or whatever, a mountain view or something. And there's a nice thing about the way these two lots said, there's a lot of slope going down there. So I really think in terms of design-wise, what needs to happen is that second story, I see why they kind of need a second story. The lot has some challenges, but I think if they push it to the back over that living area, if they don't want the living area, then redesign it, then I think it's going to have less impacts. I can't say for sure. We're not redesigning this, but for me, where this fails in the findings is the impact of the view. So that's it. Just at this point, I think it needs to be redesigned. And I think the design is significant enough so that we need to continue this. That's where I'm on it, unless my commission, I see some heads agreeing.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we continue this application for a redesign with specific direction that the second story needs to be relocated so it does not create a significant view impact to the neighbor to the north.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried to continue the item for redesign. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the public hearings, and we're on to the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As was mentioned by Mr. McWalters at the beginning of this meeting and announced last night at the City Council, we have confirmed with all of you that we'll have a special meeting on August 23rd to review what we believe is the final draft of the wireless ordinance. We'll be asking you to make a recommendation to the city council from that meeting. Exact time to be noticed, it will certainly be around the normal time of the meeting. It is a Wednesday, as normal. It'll probably be around 4 o'clock as well, but we haven't noticed that exact time yet.
When will we see that?
I knew that was coming next. That was part of the reason the meeting's going to be August 23rd. I expect we'll have a draft to you within 2 weeks. Hopefully sooner than that, but no longer than 2 weeks. That'll give you a full 3+ weeks with the document.
Thank you.
Yep. A little shout out to my team. We received and were awarded, we applied for and then were awarded a $40,000 grant from the state for the second round of updates to our city's historic context statement. If you remember last year, we did a small update adding 20 years onto the document and reformatting that section to be better, more contemporary, have better pictures, better descriptions of what we were looking at. We put in for a grant for $40,000, which will pay half of the freight for the $80,000 effort to do that to the whole document. So we'll have a very contemporary historic context statement. We'll work with the same, we're gonna have to bid it out, but we'll work with the same idea that we did with the first one to make it a very modern and useful document. So we're very excited about that. Congratulations to the team. Catherine Wallace took the lead on that application, so congratulations for that $40,000 grant. We, last night at City Council, had a meeting to roll out somewhat of a redraft of the housing element. Really what we were there last night for was to talk about the comments we've received the last 30 days in the public comment period on the draft housing element. That was distilled down into 7 policy questions for City Council, and we received very good direction from them last night. I saw several of you there last night, so thank you for coming. And what we're going to do over the intervening 3.5 weeks or so between last night and the next City Council meeting is incorporate those changes, those last couple of draft edits, come back on August 1st to City Council with a last call, final call on our draft, and then hopefully the next day hit send to the state, which will start their 90-day review of our city's housing element. Hopefully it takes them less than 90 days. We've been putting in a lot of effort on the front end to meet with our counterparts at the state who will actually be reviewing our context statement to talk to them about our approach. We invited them down and did a walking tour of the city with them, trying to more or less short circuit the full 90 days. Hopefully we get it. We did such a good job this first round that it won't take 90 days and we'll be coming back sooner to the City Council for adoption. But that's really moving along great. And then the last thing is just a reminder to you all to please check your Carmel city issued email addresses. We are trying to send to those. I know I owe some of you help setting up. So if you don't want to check that regularly, you can have it forwarded to your whatever email address you do use more often. But we'd like to transition to using those for a lot of reasons, most notably because anything sent to you from the city is a public record. And if we're sending it to your personal email address, then the rest of your public emails become a public record, and I don't think anybody wants that. So we're going to continue to use your city email addresses, so please be sure you're checking those. That's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Okay, any questions for the director? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I've never seen you use the hammer.
That's impressive. It feels kind of good.
Well done.
Whack, you know.
I came to speak tonight. I don't know if I missed. I've just been sitting there. Maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the meeting's over. Public